pitch girl knows how to create a great pitch. As proof, she once closed a $5.5 million deal from a cold call. She also knows how to make a great first impression. She once sent a 3-foot tall steel pyramid to Star Wars director George Lucas as part of a client pitch. That pitch yielded approximately $60 million in revenues for her client. Laura is the founder of thepitchgirl.com and 15secondpitch.com. She has 20 plus years of experience in advertising, online marketing, and sales. She's been a guest speaker for NYU, Columbia, and Pace University. She's also been featured in Adweek, the Financial Times, and Crain's New York Business, among others. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can't wait to tap into all that experience.
Yes.
Because pitching is something people still get very nervous about.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So thanks for being here. So let's start off with this idea of pitching ourselves. And is it something that we still have to do? Does AI now do it for us? How does it show up in this modern world with online interviewing, even just pitching businesses? I mean, it's really interesting how much things have changed, but how much do we need to know about pitching ourselves these days?
I think that we need to be aware of AI. And I've had some of my clients ask me, hey, can I just have, put my pitches into the AI machine and have them come out? And it's interesting because I love science fiction, but you run into a problem because at the end of the day, someone needs to show up for the interview. Someone needs to show up for the Zoom call. Someone needs to show up. And
you mean AI can't just show up for you?
I mean, there was a movie with Bruce Willis a long time ago where Surrogates, I think it was called, and they would send these better versions of themselves out there to do whatever it was that they needed to do. I think we need to know about AI, but I think there's a disconnect because we've been talking about authenticity and being real for the past couple of years. So if you're going to have that AI pitch, and I did this with my bio and I loved it. I was like, oh, this is so Minority Report. This is so cool. But then at the end of the day, I need to deliver something that I'm pitching, just like everybody else. So the AI pitch could be better. It could be a starting point. It could be better than the blank page. But at the end of the day, is it too good? Is it too shiny? Like the AI headshots, they look really cool, but
that's
then
not what the person looks like.
You show up,
right?
It's like, who's that?
Right.
So I think there's a place. Yeah, there's a place for AI, but I think for the most part, the opportunities that come to us, we have the least time to prepare. So it's going to be what you can say off the cuff, or you're going to get pitched in by a friend or a client or a colleague. So it's not going to be that magical, perfectly polished AI pitch. It's going to be you.
So great point. Yeah,
that's the challenge with the AI pitch.
Great point. Great point. So tell us your success story. How did having your pitch help you close that $5.5 million deal?
It's interesting because it's amazing what you can do when you have no choice. Because I worked at an ad agency, it was kind of like Mad Men, even though it was in the 90s. Crazy place, and you always had to be closing. You always had to show your value. So my dad, this is an old school pitch, but it still applies. My dad found an article in the newspaper about a company that did CD-ROMs and workbooks for college kids. That was their, and he said, oh, I thought you would find this interesting. And it was during the holidays, happened to be home over Christmas. And, I like to work. So I called this company up on a Sunday. I left a voicemail message. So my message had to be short. And I was flying back to New York on Monday. So my pitch was all about, I work at a small ad agency in New York City. I like what you're doing. I can show up at 9 a.m. Let me know if you're interested. They liked it because they're in Syracuse. They said, oh, this is kind of cool that this woman would bother to come from an agency in the city. They like that idea. And one of the things I learned from that pitch was the guy said to me, he said, "Is this your company?" I said, "No." He said, "Because you pitch it like it's your company." I said, "Okay." And that was, I've had that, a couple people have said that to me over the years, and that's kind of made me think I want to do my own thing. But
Mm.
having that short pitch, it's really the courage of your convictions, because I had a very short amount of time to get that pitch together and go in there. And, when the guy called me back, he's like, "Oh, I'll give you 15 minutes at 9 a.m. on Monday." Okay. Being constrained can help you with your pitch,
Wow.
because
Yeah, it's a good thing, right?
you have no choice. I'm either going to
Hmm.
do it or I'm not going to do it. And on the drive there, I'm thinking, why did I get myself into this?
You're like,
I don't
wow,
want to
here
do
we
this.
go. Okay,
This is
yeah.
scary. I don't want to do this.
Right. Right. And yet, feel the fear and do it anyway, and it turns into a really awesome deal. That's fantastic. So what goes into making for a great pitch, Laura? What are the components?
So I like to talk about the four key elements of the 15-second pitch. And I've been talking about this for over 20 years. And they can be tweaked a little bit, find out what works for you. But we want to keep it very, very short. And that's the challenge. So this is the outline. This is the secret sauce, which is no longer secret. And people do.
Secret doesn't mean it's easy though. That's why I'm so glad you're here.
That's part of
Right?
it. That's part of
Right.
it, because I'll get pushback. People will email me after this. They'll say, "I don't like step 3 and I don't like step 4." Okay. But we're going to do it anyway. So step number 1 is who you are. Simply your name. "Hey, I'm Laura Allen." Hey, that should be pretty easy. Step number 2 is what you do. It's like, oh, we're getting a little more specific.
Mhm.
So I'm a financial advisor, I work in real estate, whatever it is, be specific and make it something that most people can understand. Because when you say I'm a management consultant, people will shake their head. Oh, yeah. They may not know what that means, though, but they're not going to tell you.
Right.
And step number 3
Layman's
is
terms, I
where,
guess,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Hmm.
keep it, a dentist. I know what that is,
Hmm.
you know. Um, Step number 3 is why you are the best at what you do. And people get in an uproar and they say, um, "I don't want to say I'm the best. I don't want to come off as cocky or arrogant." And you don't have to put anyone else down, because sometimes I see that in pitches. These people do this and we do this instead. That's a way to differentiate. You don't have to necessarily do that. It's just what makes you different from everybody else. But if I say what makes you different, they're going to downplay it a little bit.
Mm,
It's that step number 3 that gets you through the door.
right. The
It's that
best at what you
magical
do.
thing.
Right.
Right. And step number 4 is the call to action, which
Mm,
a lot of people miss. So you're pitching at that networking event, you're pitching online, you're meeting new people at the backyard barbecue. How do they get in touch with you? Do you have a business card that you can give to them? Do you have a website? I see people with, the little piece of paper that they're going to write on. There
mm,
has to be a way to contact you and make it easy and make it memorable, so they know this is the person I met at the backyard barbecue, so they can connect it, make it easy for them. Nobody wants to call you up and make a mistake.
mm.
So those are the 4 key steps. They should be one sentence each, which is also the hard part.
Wow.
Because
That's the
people
brevity, right?
people like to put a lot of different details in their pitch, but the listener is not that good usually at discerning all those different elements.
Mm.
So they'll reject the pitch. "Oh, I do yoga and I dog walk and I clean apartments, and but what I really want to do is I really want to get into real estate investing." And the person's like, "Ooh."
Yeah, that's true.
they
I've
they
had
they
I've talked to people like that. You're like, wait, which what am I supposed to focus on?
and you can do all of those different things, but I suggest you focus on one thing at a time, but you're going to have a pitch for every niche, is what I
Mm,
call it, because otherwise you nobody can remember that many things. So I'd rather be the person that does one thing that people can remember, because it's all about people referring you. Those are the best deals still, online, in person, through email, is someone that's going to pitch me into an opportunity. I'd much rather have that than have the opportunity directly.
That's a great point, right? It's nice coming from someone else, for
Mm,
sure.
it's the best.
Yeah. Okay, so people can basically draft their pitch and then maybe make it more concise, right? So like write down your
Right.
thoughts on those four questions. So, this is that what makes the great first impression then? Is it the pitch itself? But obviously you know how to make great first impressions. So what goes into that component? 'Cause again, people are having less and less time to if they're interviewing, sometimes they're not even another person on the other side of the video, right? They're just asked to answer a bunch of questions to a camera, as the first screen of the interview. So I think it's harder for people sometimes to make that first impression if they're not used to being in front of a camera, for one, or if they're just not interested in that, or that makes them scared. So, what do you think makes a great first impression? Is it having this pitch and having the confidence, and what else goes into it?
I think it's choosing what you want to focus on, because when I used to go on interviews, I knew if they asked me, which is usually the first question out of the gate, so tell me about yourself, either I was going to lose the opportunity, which I did a lot of times until I got better, or I was going to somehow wing it and
Mm-hmm.
get my foot through the next door. But it was a complete, you know, who knew which one it was going to be, and it was very challenging. So until I got clarity on some of the stories I was going to tell, it was very, very difficult for me. So I think talking to a screen, or you don't know who you're talking to, at least have the courage of your convictions and talk about things that you can deliver. Because the biggest mistake I see in job seekers and entrepreneurs too is they will say, well, I can do anything. I can solve all these different problems. I can help anybody with their challenges. And maybe that's true, probably not. Maybe that's true, but I don't know what bucket to put you in. I don't know if you're a virtual assistant. I don't know if you're a project manager. I don't know how to refer you. So you're not going to get any referrals from that pitch, because people don't want to send you to the wrong opportunity. So it's kind of ironic. They want to make it broader because they want more opportunities, and they end up getting no opportunities, or something that's completely out of left field.
That's a
Have you ever
really
thought
good
about
point.
being a greeter at Walmart? Yeah, I thought about it. I don't want to do that.
It's so interesting. Yeah, people do that when they're, in between jobs and like, well, I'm looking for an opportunity and I can do anything, or here's my resume, send it out to people, and it's not specific enough to know how to help them. And I think
Right.
that is a really good point. And you said also knowing what stories to share, right? So
Yes.
so how do you help people, or how did you let's use your example, right? You sent this 3 foot tall pyramid. Right, to George Lucas. Like, how did you come up with a pyramid, and why a pyramid? And how do you assess your audience in that way and come up with something good?
Yeah. Come up with a really, really creative way to get George Lucas's attention. Only the most creative guy on the planet. And again, the time constraint actually helped me and the ad agency I was pitching with, because the client got the opportunity very late. So the client got the opportunity to pitch maybe 3 weeks before it was due.
Oh, wow.
And they paced the floor for about a week. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? They brought us in. The pyramid idea came from the logo of the company was a pyramid, so that's not that hard to come up with that particular piece. But how do you construct it? We ended up having about 3 or 4 days to construct it, because you also have to ship it out to California from New York. You're like, okay, so you have to decide. And in that particular instance, I was young, I was in my 20s, I'm pitching at the client's workspace, and there's an actual Darth Vader at the end of the conference room table. It's all men in $15,000 custom suits. and, the people on my team pitching and the president of the company. And I kept looking up and I kept thinking, if that Darth Vader moves, I'm gonna, I'm gonna jump out of my skin. So at one point I said, well, Lord Vader, as I was, and I got a little chuckle. I got a slight chuckle because I'm sure I wasn't the first person to be intimidated by Lord Vader, there in the pitch. But then the president of the company was talking about how he was going to start building this pyramid. This is when I knew I'm either going to get fired or I'm going to get promoted. You're going to take a risk. And I needed this job. I couldn't really get fired. I couldn't afford it. And I looked at him and I said, Jeff, you do not have time to build the pyramid yourself. We're going to build the pyramid. And, dead silence around the table. And he said, you're right. And that was that. So the idea of the pyramid was cool. The execution of the pyramid in a short amount of time was crucial. And what we also did is we put an R2D2 recorder as a little tape recorder with R2D2, and it gave our pitch in the little R2D2 unit because we figured, George Lucas is going to open up this pyramid and he's going to see R2D2. And he actually called the client and said it was one of the most creative pitches that he's seen.
Wow.
We didn't have a choice. We had a choice, but we wanted the deal.
Well, you didn't play it safe. That was your choice. You're like, do we play it safe or do we really go for it? And it sounds like that's another component to a really great pitch.
Yes. I think that being scrappy, and I've talked about this in my career too, the perfect pitch, you have to be perfect. You have to have the perfect hair. I wanted to get my hair color done before this. I'm like, you know what? It's more important to be scrappy, and particularly now because things are changing, and I don't care who you are or what you're doing. People need people who can deliver. I talked about project managers. So if you can deliver something, painting the walls in my apartment building, if you can deliver consistently, you can get work. That's where I'm at.
But, so you're saying the pitch is a way to deliver, show that you could deliver, because you're literally delivering the pitch.
You have to be able to deliver what you say you're going to deliver, though. That's the thing.
Oh, I say, okay, in the pitch itself. Gotcha. So take a risk, go out on a limb, but not so far that you can't deliver on that.
That's something I see with web designers, with different people. It's feast or famine. So they take on a lot of business. It gets more complicated, then they can't deliver. That becomes a huge problem. So I think it's better to be a little bit lean when you need to say no to certain projects or refer them to other people. Always have other people that you can refer business to, because that's useful. But I do see a lot of frustration across the board with people that don't deliver, because when the economy starts tanking, we see that people get desperate and they're like, I need to get out there and pitch. And I think they have the best of intentions, but sometimes they just can't deliver, and that will set you back further than, being a month off on the rent, I think.
Oh, that's a really good point. Okay. Really good point. Be able to deliver. So are there other words of advice you have for people looking to improve their marketing and sales, whether it is for their own business or if they're an employee? Does everybody need to know how to pitch? I mean, I guess it would help even in any career path, right? To be able to know how to pitch yourself, right? For promotion, for opportunities, right? This kind of pitch could be even used for something like that, internal.
I think there's always competition, even if it's internal, because I think about real estate, and there are real estate agents, right? A ton of competition, and a lot of times they will pitch, I can help anybody with any kind of building, any kind of. That's not usually the best idea, because I think about a woman I worked with 20 years ago. She was all about Park Avenue. Part of her pitch was, I've lived on Park Avenue for 20 years. I focus exclusively on selling Park Avenue real estate. How the heck are you going to unhinge her from that Park Avenue pitch? She would always close those deals.
Mm.
You're probably not going to be a real estate agent in your first year selling Park Avenue properties. It's going to be really hard. So people referred business to her, and she doesn't want to deal with first-time buyers. She doesn't want to deal with somebody in Brooklyn. So she would refer those opportunities. It worked out. So I think you have to have the pitch even internally. And if you are in real estate, first-time buyers, that's really, really hard. It's a lot of work. Nobody wants to deal with it. But if you want to build a loyal clientele over time, that's a niche that you could get into. First time buyers. How do they get the mortgage? Where should they look? How do you come up with, $1.2 million for a studio in the East Village? That's a little hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great niche for somebody that wants to put in the work. But there could be a million other niches within real estate.
Right. So it's about that authenticity back to who you are, what you'll deliver on. And I see that because it's about people doing I always, my hashtag, one of them is, do what you love, right? Because it's like, you're going to deliver on the stuff you want to be doing. It's a lot harder to deliver on the stuff you don't want to be doing anyway.
If I don't care about Williamsburg, if I think Williamsburg is not a cool place, it's going to be harder for me to pitch Williamsburg than somebody who lives out there and moved out there and they know when the L train's not running or wherever it is, wherever your focus is. People can see that. Back to that authenticity that we talk about. People know when there's something not quite right. The real estate agent on Park Avenue is not pitching Williamsburg, not in a million years.
Yeah, it helps to know where your niche is and get that kind of clarity. And I think writing your pitch, I've done your workshops before. That's one of my questions too, is where can people find out more to do their pitch? What do you suggest? Do they could listen here and do this today? Do you work with people, or do you, have a website, or are you planning to do, any seminars online or off? Like, where can people really get and dig into their pitches? What do you suggest?
Well, I think starting off the 4 key steps that I talked about today, I make my clients do it. They don't like doing it. I don't like pitching either. That's how I got into this, because I didn't like it.
It seems like you do. It seems like you like
it. It's necessary. It's necessary because I saw a lot of good people losing opportunities because they weren't able to pitch themselves or promote themselves. So that's
still a problem today. That has not changed.
That's how I got interested in it. It's a real advantage. So work on those 4 key steps. You can find me at thepitchgirl.com. That's my website. And I think it doesn't have to be, we talked about these kind of big pitches, George Lucas. It doesn't have to be the crazy big pitch.
Not everybody has to build a 3-foot tall pyramid.
Not everybody has to do that. I hear pitches all the time. I had one woman come to a workshop and she said, I'm a freelance writer who's never missed a deadline. Boom. People lined up because what do we know about freelance writers sometimes, or freelancers in general? Sometimes they flake out. So that was all she needed. She has to deliver, but it doesn't have to be, and also I was thinking about this. I met someone, this guy, he looked like Christian Bale, and this was his pitch, which was part of, it's authentic to him. It's very on brand. He said, I'm an accountant who will get you as close to an audit as you've ever been without actually getting you an audit. And you know what, that I get it. And that's you're going to find the right clientele.
Oh, when I went to tax, like a tax accountant saying,
he's a tax,
and IRS
I'll get you as close. I'm going to get you every dollar. I'm going to get you every advantage.
But not set off the alarm bells at the IRS so you actually get audited.
But that's the guy
that line. Okay.
That's the guy I don't want for me. So when I went to hire an accountant, I said, I need you to keep me as far away from an audit. I don't want that headache.
That's good to know.
Some people do. Some people do. So his pitch actually informed what I don't want. Some
Right.
people do want that. They want every tax advantage. I don't need the IRS. I don't need the headache. I'm happy to
Right.
pay.
Right. Right. No, and I think that's such a great point because it's always about fit, right? About fit between a
Right.
person and a job, between a person and an opportunity, between a client and your service. Like it's so when you do the pitch the right way, the right clients know, and the ones who aren't a fit know too, and it makes life easier. Has that been what you found? Has this really made your clients' lives easier and your own knowing how to pitch?
Absolutely, because a lot of what I do, and I've made every mistake that I talk about more than one time, so I
Oh, I
really
find
get
that
it.
hard to believe. Come on.
I really get it.
You
A
do
lot
walk
of
the
what
talk, though. I know that. That's for
I
sure.
try. A
Mhm.
lot of what I do is helping people offboard, offload, gently send
Mm.
off the wrong clients
Oh, good
because
point. Hmm.
they fall in love with the opportunity. They fall in love with sometimes the brand name, big huge bank, big huge pharmaceutical company. Sometimes those clients end up taking up 90% of your time, and they want a deal. It's kind of amazing, but even though you
Oh,
can't really talk about it that much, you can't really, name names that much, but like, oh, you get to work with us, so pay us a lot less, but we
oh,
demand a lot more.
oh,
So I think
interesting.
saying no to the wrong client is paramount to keeping your sanity, because those people will take your soul if you let them. So yeah, if somebody is not the right fit, if somebody's like, oh, I saw this girl Laura and her hair, like she had a lot of growth on the roots.
Not gonna work
I
then.
know, I know.
Other people are like, I love that. She's real.
If that's gonna bother you, then I'm gonna look this way the next time we get on a Zoom call, probably until I get to New York to go to my colorist. So I used to worry about that. I used to worry about being perfect, and there was a disconnect. There was a disconnect
Mm,
because I really was more interested in getting the job done than kind of, being this pitch perfect person.
wow. That's a really good point. I think something that we can leave people with is that perfectionism is fine if that's actually your brand, right? Some people are
Yes,
perfect in certain ways, and that's exactly what they're there to do. But if you're trying to put on airs or be something you're not in your pitch, you're going to attract the wrong clients and it's going to go in the wrong direction. Would you agree with that?
100%. You are destined to fail. If you want to be an anchor on TV, I think you have to look pretty perfect if you want to be an
Right.
anchor.
Great point.
But if
Right.
you want to do
Mhm.
something on YouTube that's a little scrappy, that might be an okay thing to do.
I love that scrappy inspiration, Lauren. You're making me think I've been playing it a little too safe, with my own pitches. And I think it's nice to let more of your personality out, appropriately in these pitches. So, yeah, so thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience about pitching? So they'll find you at thepitchgirl.com. I'll make sure I put a link in the show notes. Any other
Yes.
last words of advice?
A good pitch today is better than the perfect pitch tomorrow, because the big opportunity is going to find you when you are the least prepared. All the time, all the time, all the time.
Wow. I love it. I love it. So that's even another reason you don't have to be perfect, but be ready.
Be ready. Be ready.
Be ready. Well, thank you, Laura, for making us ready today to pitch ourselves, our businesses, internally, externally, being the best we can be. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.